Here's something that might keep you up tonight. Right now, as you're watching this, there are thousands of completely law-abiding gun owners who have no idea they're breaking the law. Not because they're reckless, not because they're irresponsible, but because gun laws in this country are so tangled, so contradictory, and so different from one state to the next that even people who think they know the rules are walking around with felonies waiting to happen. And the scary part, you might be one of them. So let's fix that today. We're going deep into the laws that trip people up the most, the ones that can turn a routine drive, a family vacation, or even dropping your kid off at school into a legal nightmare. And trust me, some of these are going to surprise you. Now, before we dive in, quick disclaimer, this isn't legal advice and I'm definitely not a lawyer. This information is current, but laws change constantly. For the really detailed stuff, consult an actual attorney or follow organizations that track this professionally. What I'm giving you today is a roadmap, a starting point to help you understand where the landmines are buried.
You need to be on the right side of the law because the legal system is complex.
It said in part that gun regulations must be consistent with the historical tradition of firearms regulations in the U.S.
There's a myriad of things that can tie you up legally, financially, put you in jail, or maybe get you in very serious trouble with the police.
With gun control being implemented in a number of states, even where least expected, this is not a bill that gun owners should ignore.
Our citizens want gun safety, want firearm safety, want community safety.
The interstate travel trap. Let's start with something almost every gun owner does at some point. You're packing up for a road trip. Maybe you're heading to visit family, attending a shooting competition, or just getting away for the weekend. You've got your firearm, you're legal in your home state, and you're legal at your destination. Simple enough, right? Here's where it gets complicated. There's a federal law called the Firearms Owners Protection Act, FOPA for short, that's supposed to protect you when you're traveling between two places where you can legally possess your firearm. Sounds great on paper, but there are very specific requirements. Your gun must be unloaded, it must be locked in a container, the ammunition has to be stored separately, and everything needs to be somewhere that's not readily accessible. That means no glove box, no center console, and definitely not under your seat. The trunk is really your only safe option. But here's the catch that gets people. Some states, and I'm looking at New Jersey and New York here, don't exactly roll out the welcome mat for people traveling through with firearms. Even if you're following FOPA perfectly, even if you're doing everything by the book, these states have been known to prosecute travelers anyway. They've added their own restrictions, their own interpretations, and their own enforcement priorities. What you thought was a weekend getaway could potentially become a very expensive legal battle. The lesson here is simple but crucial. Plan your route carefully. Know which states you're passing through, and if possible, avoid the ones that treat the Second Amendment like a suggestion rather than a right. National parks and the federal building surprise. Alright, so you made it across state lines without incident. You're headed into a beautiful national park to enjoy some fresh air, maybe do some hiking, reconnect with nature, and since 2010, you're actually allowed to carry a firearm in national parks as long as you're following the laws of whatever state that park is located in. If you're properly licensed or you're in a constitutional carry state, you're good to go on the trails. But here's where people get blindsided. The moment you step inside any federal building within that park, and that includes the visitor center, the ranger station, any administrative office, your firearm instantly becomes illegal. We're talking federal law here. You could be walking along completely legal, step inside to grab a trail map or use the restroom, and suddenly you've committed a federal offense without even realizing it. This doesn't just apply to national parks either. Post offices, courthouses, any federal building follows the same rule. What's perfectly legal in the parking lot becomes a serious crime the second you cross that threshold. So if you're carrying in these areas, stay aware of your surroundings and know exactly which buildings you can and cannot enter. The 1,000-foot rule that nobody talks about. Now let's talk about one of the sneakiest laws on the books. The Gun-Free School Zone Act creates a zone extending 1,000 feet around every K-12 school in the country. And yes, that includes public schools, private schools, and religious schools. Within that zone, it's generally illegal to have a firearm, even if the school is closed, even if you're just driving by, even if you have no intention of going anywhere near the actual building. Think about how many schools are scattered throughout any given town. Now think about how many roads pass within 1,000 feet of those schools. You could be doing absolutely everything right, firearms stored properly in your vehicle, minding your own business, and still technically be violating federal law just by taking the wrong route home. There are exceptions. If you have a valid concealed carry permit issued by the state you're currently in, and that state's licensing process meets federal standards, you're likely covered. But if you're from out of state, or if your state doesn't meet those federal requirements, you could be breaking the law without even stepping out of your car. And even if your permit is valid, that doesn't automatically mean you can carry on school property itself. Some states allow it, others absolutely don't. It's a patchwork of rules that varies wildly depending on where you are. Open carry versus concealed carry. Here's something that confuses a lot of people. Just because you can carry doesn't mean you can carry however you want. Some states treat open carry and concealed carry the same way. Same rights, same rules, no distinction. Other states treat them completely differently. Take Arizona or Kentucky. They're relaxed about both open and concealed carry, and in most cases you don't even need a permit. But then look at Florida. You can concealed carry with a permit, but open carry is basically off the table unless you're actively hunting or fishing. California and Illinois have essentially shut the door on open carry in most public places regardless of whether you have a permit, so knowing where you can carry is only half the equation. You also need to know how you're allowed to carry. Assume both are legal when they're not, and you might be walking into a misdemeanor charge without even realizing it. Places of worship and permission requirements. Carrying in places of worship is another area where the rules get complicated fast. In states like Texas and Florida, concealed carry is generally allowed in churches, synagogues, and mosques, unless the property itself prohibits firearms. But other states take a different approach. South Carolina and Louisiana actually require you to get explicit permission from the religious institution's leadership before you can bring a firearm inside. Georgia has an opt-in system where churches can choose to allow firearms, but they need to put it in writing. Without that documentation, you could be creating legal problems for yourself. The assumption that religious buildings are automatically okay for carrying is exactly the kind of assumption that gets people into trouble. Check your local laws and the specific policies of any place of worship before you carry there. Duty to inform law enforcement. This one varies dramatically depending on where you are, and getting it wrong can escalate a routine traffic stop into something much more serious. Some states require you by law to inform a police officer that you're carrying a concealed firearm, whether they ask or not. Ohio, South Carolina, and Louisiana all have these duty to inform laws. Fail to disclose, and you could be looking at fines or criminal charges. Other states only require you to tell the officer if they specifically ask. Texas falls into this category, and some states like Pennsylvania and Georgia have no legal obligation to inform at all unless prompted. Even in states where it's not required, many people recommend volunteering that information calmly and respectfully at the start of any interaction with law enforcement. It helps prevent misunderstandings and keeps things smooth for everyone involved. But the key point is knowing what's actually required where you live, because guessing wrong could turn a minor encounter into a major problem. Firearm registries and state requirements. While there's no federal registry for firearms, and hopefully there never will be, some states have created their own registration systems. California requires registration of all handguns and certain rifles classified as assault weapons. Hawaii requires all firearms to be registered with local police within 5 days of acquisition. Washington, D.C. has one of the strictest systems in the country, requiring registration for every firearm plus regular renewals. On the opposite end, states like Texas, Georgia, and Montana don't just skip firearm registries. They have laws explicitly banning them. So if you're relocating or purchasing new firearms, understanding whether your state requires registration is essential. Failing to comply, even out of ignorance, can create serious legal headaches. Magazine capacity limits. Magazine capacity restrictions are another area where crossing a state line can instantly change your legal status. California, New York, and New Jersey cap magazines at 10 rounds. What's completely legal in one state becomes contraband the moment you drive across the border. Colorado allows 15 rounds. Illinois has different limits for handguns and long guns, and some states grandfather in magazines that were owned before their bans took effect, meaning your old magazine might be legal while a new identical one wouldn't be. If you're traveling with firearms, always verify the magazine laws for every state you'll pass through. Being caught with the wrong magazine by mistake is still being caught with the wrong magazine. Ammunition laws and background checks. Ammunition purchases have their own maze of regulations. California requires background checks for buying ammunition, whether online or in person. New York and Illinois have their own verification requirements for online purchases. New Jersey reports all handgun ammunition sales to state police, even the smallest purchases. And then there are restrictions on ammunition types. New Jersey limits hollow point ammunition to home use and certain activities like hunting. Using it in your concealed carry firearm could violate state law. The point is that ammunition isn't just something you buy without thinking. Depending on where you are, there could be paperwork, waiting periods, or outright bans on certain types. Storage laws and your responsibilities. There's no federal law dictating exactly how you must store your firearms, but many states have their own requirements. Massachusetts requires guns to be locked up at all times when you're at home. California, Oregon, and New York have aggressive storage laws, especially regarding access by children or prohibited persons. Other states like Texas and Florida are more relaxed, but they get strict if a child or prohibited person actually gains access to your firearm and something happens. Knowing your state's storage requirements isn't just about avoiding legal trouble, it's about keeping everyone safe. Private sales and background check requirements. Private sales are another area where assumptions can get you into trouble. In California, Colorado, and New York, even private sales between individuals require a background check, just like purchasing from a licensed dealer. In Texas, Arizona, and Nevada, private sales don't require background checks at all. Before you buy, sell, or trade firearms privately, verify what your state requires. That handshake deal might be perfectly legal, or it might be a crime waiting to happen. Waiting periods. After background checks. Passing your background check doesn't always mean you're walking out with your firearm that day. States like California, Illinois, and Hawaii have mandatory waiting periods even after your background check clears. These cooling off periods can range from several days to 2 weeks. Other states like Texas and Arizona have no waiting period once the background check is approved. Same-day purchases are completely normal. Know what to expect before you make a purchase so you're not caught off guard. State preemption and local rules. Some states have preemption laws that prevent local governments from creating their own firearm regulations. In these states, the rules are consistent no matter which city or county you're in, but other states allow cities to make their own rules, which means the laws can change dramatically just by crossing into a new municipality. Colorado repealed its preemption law in 2021, so now cities like Denver and Boulder can enforce stricter regulations than the rest of the state. One city might be perfectly fine with your concealed carry, while the next city over could consider it illegal. Always verify local laws when traveling within your state. Red flag laws and how they work. Red flag laws, also called extreme risk protection orders, allow courts to temporarily remove firearms from individuals deemed a risk to themselves or others. There's no federal red flag law currently in effect, but many states have implemented their own systems with federal funding support. The specifics vary enormously. Some states allow family members and law enforcement to file petitions. Others restrict it to law enforcement only. The timeline for firearm removal differs. The triggers for initiating the process differ. Understanding how these laws work in your state is important for knowing your rights and responsibilities. Use of force and stand your ground. When it comes to defending yourself with deadly force, the laws vary significantly depending on location. States like Florida and Texas have stand your ground laws, meaning you have no duty to retreat if you believe your life is in danger. Other states like California and New York require you to retreat if safely possible before using deadly force. The castle doctrine applies when you're defending yourself in your home and sometimes extends to your vehicle or workplace. In these situations, you generally don't have to retreat. But even in castle doctrine states, the use of force must be justified. Making the wrong call in a dangerous situation can lead to serious legal consequences, even if you survive the encounter itself. Understanding when and where you can legally use force isn't just academic. It could determine whether you're treated as a victim defending yourself or as a criminal who went too far. Final thoughts. So there you have it, a deep dive into some of the most confusing, contradictory, and potentially dangerous gun laws that affect everyday gun owners. If your head is spinning a little, that's completely understandable. These laws are complicated by design, and they change constantly. The most important thing you can take away from this is simple. Don't assume. Don't rely on what your buddy told you at the range. Don't trust outdated information from internet forums. Know your local laws. Double check them before you travel. And when you're genuinely uncertain, consult a qualified attorney who specializes in firearms law. Being a responsible gun owner means more than just handling your firearms safely. It means understanding the legal landscape you're operating in and making sure you stay on the right side of it. That's it for today, folks. See you in the next video.